The ocean stretched endlessly around them, calm and inviting just hours ago, now transformed into a monstrous battlefield. Elena gripped the side of the small wooden boat, her knuckles pale, her heart pounding with every rise and fall of the waves. Adrian was at her side, his hands tight on the rudder, his jaw set, eyes narrowed against the sheets of rain that blurred the horizon. They had set out with excitement, believing this voyage would be an adventure, a discovery of hidden islands untouched by human hands. But now, all that excitement had been swallowed by fear as the sea turned against them. Dark clouds rolled overhead. Thunder boomed so loud it seemed to rattle the very air in their lungs, and lightning forked across the sky, striking the water with a terrifying crack. The once gentle waves rose into towering walls of water, crashing down with the sound of mountains collapsing. Their boat, small and fragile, was tossed like a toy, every creak of the wood sounding like a warning that the sea would not forgive them. "Elena, hold on!" Adrian shouted above the roar, his voice almost lost to the wind. She clung tighter, water soaking her hair, her face, every inch of her trembling body. The salt stung her eyes, but she refused to let go. The boat pitched violently, one moment climbing the steep back of a wave, the next plunging into a valley of dark water. A massive swell loomed before them, higher than anything they had yet faced. Adrian's eyes widened as he pulled the rudder, but it was no use. The wave crashed down, smashing into them with the force of an avalanche. Wood splintered, ropes snapped, and their boat broke apart beneath their feet. Elena screamed as she was thrown into the churning sea, her body swallowed by the cold depths. She fought desperately, arms flailing, lungs burning, salt water choking her throat. Somewhere nearby, she heard Adrian call her name, his voice muffled and distant under the roar of the storm. Struggling upward, she broke the surface, gasping for air, only for another wave to slam over her, dragging her under again. Her hand caught something smooth, solid, a broken piece of wood from the wreck. She clung to it with all the strength she had left. Moments later, Adrian surfaced beside her, coughing, his hands finding the same plank. Their eyes met through the chaos, fear mingling with determination. They said nothing, but in that look was a vow. Neither would let the other go. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time was lost in the endless struggle. The storm raged, waves crashing around them like giants battling in the dark. Their bodies ached, every breath was a fight, but they held on. Little by little, the storm began to fade. The thunder rolled further away, the lightning softened into distant flashes, and the waves shrank from mountains to restless swells. At last, through the mist and the gray dawn, Elena saw it, a shadow on the horizon. Land. Her lips parted, but no sound came, only a weak gasp of hope. Adrian followed her gaze, his eyes hardening with resolve. Together, clinging to the shattered wood, they kicked and fought toward that distant promise. Each stroke was agony, each wave an enemy, but they refused to give in. When at last they felt the scrape of sand beneath their feet, when the sea released them onto the shore, they collapsed side by side on the wet sand, too weak to move but alive. Elena turned her face toward Adrian, his chest heaving, his eyes closed, but the faintest smile touching his lips. They had survived the wrath of the ocean, but as they lifted their heads, they saw it. A dense jungle rising before them, dark and endless, waiting. The jungle wrapped around them like a living maze, its canopy blotting out most of the daylight, letting only fractured rays slip through. The air was thick, damp, humming with the cries of unseen creatures. Each step sank into soft earth littered with fallen leaves, and vines brushed against their skin like hands reaching out to hold them back. Elena wiped the sweat from her brow, her breath uneven while Adrian walked slightly ahead, eyes scanning the undergrowth for any sign of danger or safety. They had survived the fury of the sea, but now the island itself seemed alive, watching them, testing them. For a time, the beauty distracted them. Streams glimmered, flowers bloomed in impossible colors. Parrots and strange birds flashed overhead with wings like painted fire. Yet, beneath the beauty, a strange silence began to settle, the kind that warned of predators near. The calls of birds faded, the hum of insects dulled, and only the sound of their footsteps remained. Elena slowed, her instincts pulling at her. "Adrian," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. "Something's wrong." He felt it too. His hand brushed against her arm, steady but firm. "Stay close." The silence cracked with a low growl. It rumbled from the shadows, primal and hungry. Then another answered it, and another. From between the trees, eyes appeared, dozens of them, glowing amber in the dim light. Wolves. Their forms slipped from the undergrowth. Sleek bodies, thick fur, teeth bared in cruel anticipation. A pack, moving as one, closing the circle around the two intruders. Elena's heart hammered in her chest, her hand instinctively clutching Adrian's. The wolves padded closer, their paws silent on the earth, their growls rising into a deadly chorus. Adrian pulled her behind him slightly, his gaze locked on the nearest wolf, though he knew bare hands would never be enough against such numbers. His mind raced, searching desperately for a way out, but there was none. The circle was complete, teeth glinting, eyes unblinking. One wolf stepped forward, lips curling back to reveal sharp yellow fangs. It crouched low, muscles rippling, ready to spring. Elena tightened her grip on Adrian's hand, her breath catching. In her eyes shone terror, but also a spark of defiance. Adrian shifted his stance, pulling her closer, prepared to shield her with his own body. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, every sound swallowed. The wolf lunged. Time stretched in that heartbeat. Elena's scream caught in her throat. Adrian tensed for the impact. But instinct screamed that this was only the beginning. The pack bristled, every pair of glowing eyes fixed on their prey. There was no running, no hiding. They were trapped. Two lost souls against a dozen hungry predators. The jungle itself their cage. The wolves advanced, snarls rising, their shadows blending with the darkness, ready to close in and finish what hunger had driven them to begin. The wolf's leap hung in the air, a blur of teeth and claws, when the jungle exploded with a sound that froze everything in its place. A roar, deep and thunderous, shook the trees, rolling through the ground, through the bones, through the very air they breathed. It was no ordinary sound. It was command, dominance, fury given voice. The lunging wolf faltered mid-air, twisting back to land on its paws, ears flattened. The pack stiffened, growls caught in their throats, eyes flicking toward the source. From the shadows between two massive trees, he appeared. A lion. Not just any lion, but a colossal beast, his golden mane catching what little light filtered through the canopy, glowing like fire. His shoulders rippled with muscle, every step deliberate, the weight of a king. His amber eyes locked onto the wolves, cold and unflinching. A predator's gaze that promised death. The wolves hesitated, shifting, torn between their hunger and their fear. Their growls returned, louder this time, a desperate attempt to muster courage. The lion's lips curled back, baring fangs as long as daggers. He released another roar, even louder, the force of it sending birds shrieking from the treetops. The jungle itself seemed to bow to him. Then he charged. The earth shook beneath his paws as he closed the distance in a heartbeat. His body collided with the lead wolf, sending it tumbling with a yelp that ended in silence. Claws slashed, jaws snapped, fur and blood flew as the king tore through the pack with unstoppable ferocity. Wolves lunged at him from every side, but he was a storm of power, each movement precise and devastating. He caught one by the throat, crushing it with a single shake. Another leapt onto his back, but he rolled, slamming it into the ground before raking it open with his claws. Elena and Adrian could only watch, breathless, frozen in awe and terror. The battle was chaos, but there was no question of who ruled here. One by one, the wolves fell back, their courage breaking. Their snarls became whimpers, their defiance shattered. Those that could still run slunk into the darkness, tails tucked, eyes glowing faintly as they vanished into the trees. The clearing fell silent again. The lion stood tall in the center, chest heaving, blood streaking his golden coat, not his own, but the wolves'. His mane bristled, his gaze still sharp, scanning for any challenge. When none came, he turned his eyes to Elena and Adrian. For a long moment, time seemed to stop. His stare was fierce, yet within it was something deeper, something ancient. It was not mercy nor kindness, but recognition. They were fragile, small, but they had fought to endure, and the king had judged them worthy of life. Elena's lips trembled, a gasp escaping her throat, her eyes wide with awe. Adrian's hand tightened around hers, steadying her, though his own heart raced uncontrollably. Neither dared to move, neither dared to breathe too loudly. as the lion held their gaze. Then, with a slow flick of his tail, he turned. Without a sound, he walked back into the jungle, his golden mane fading into the shadows until only the memory of his roar remained, echoing in their hearts. The silence that followed was heavy but alive. Elena's chest heaved as she whispered almost to herself, "He saved us." Adrian nodded, unable to find words, his eyes still fixed on the darkness where the lion had disappeared. For the first time since the storm, they felt something stronger than fear, something like hope, raw and powerful. They had been spared, and in that sparing, they understood. Survival was not just their will, but the jungle's judgment. Please click subscribe to our channel. We have more stories coming soon. Miss any new stories? Thank you for listening.